Hey everyone, welcome to another video of DC NBA Junkie, where I'll be discussing NBA related content every single day. I'm continuing a new series called NBA Team Futures, where each day I will be deep diving into a different NBA team and talking about my stance on each team moving forward from the NBA hiatus. If that seems interesting to you, then feel free to tune in on some nice NBA content. For today's episode, I'll be taking a closer look with the Denver Nuggets. They have a nice duo of point forward Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray that are both surrounded with several talented role players. They play a nice unselfish style that is more perimeter centric, though they've been working to prove themselves as legit threats in the Western Conference. If that sounds interesting to look into, then let's get right into it. But before I begin, make sure to leave a like on the video and comment down any suggestions for any certain video ideas, or even what NBA team I should do next. Any suggestion is greatly appreciated. But lastly, make sure to subscribe. I mean, we're all here for some nice NBA content. Now, without further ado, let's take a look into the future of the Denver Nuggets. So to begin, with the team overview of the Denver Nuggets, they had a 43-22 record going into, this year, and it was good enough for the third seed in the Western Conference, behind the Clippers and the Lakers. In terms of some notable things to keep in mind, they had the second least losses in the conference, which is only behind the Lakers, however, they only had a mediocre away record. And so when I think about the Denver Nuggets, I think of them as a very unique team, especially since they have the very one-of-a-kind player in Jokic, who can be a very versatile player who's like a point forward for them. So basically playmakes, whether he's hitting a guy or for a jumper or hitting a guy off a cut. He's certainly a talented player and is very valuable to this team. But one of the things that people use to really knock off what the Denver Nuggets success in general is just their lack of regular season performances and wins, but more importantly their playoff experience. And that's just, it's true. I mean, the Denver Nuggets they're a good team right now, but they just, in the recent memory, they just haven't been too amazing, especially with building up to this team. Other than last season, they hadn't made the playoffs since 2013, so I'm not saying this team is a poor performer. They certainly did pretty well last year. They went to the second round and got eliminated in 7 to the Blazers, so they potentially could have gone to the conference finals and put up a good fight against the Warriors, which I much rather would have wanted to see than the Blazer matchup. But in terms of that, just they haven't had too much success, so that's just one thing that to keep in mind is just for the Denver Nuggets moving forward is how can they improve and stay connected as a team and really make themselves a legitimate team in the Western Conference. Now next, I want to talk about Michael Porter Jr. and what he means to this team. They got him in the 2018 NBA draft with the 14th pick. I do not think they believed at all they would be able to get the choice to draft him. They had to draft him. It was an obvious choice for them, a nice forward who they were kind of lacking at the forward spot. He didn't play last year, but this year when he's played, he's been a very serviceable player, playing solid minutes and definitely contributing in many ways to the team, especially some solid offensive performances and just a really solid all-around player as of right now. But I just want to talk about more of his development in this franchise, because I feel like he's the X factor for this team, and his development is crucial for their success moving forward. I'm thinking that's what's going to put them over the hump. Last year, they did not get him in the playoffs, but if the season continues this year, he could be a very important part for their team going into the playoffs. But if not next season, just letting him develop and playing a full season is going to be really important for them, and just having that development for him with a really well-rounded team is going to definitely can only do great things for them. And just talking about Michael Porter himself, he's got the perfect offensive frame at like 6'10", nice kind of like lengthy frame. He's kind of like reminds me of Kevin Durant in terms of that size and that frame. And he's certainly got great potential. He's a very good offensive player who is an outstanding guy in high school. He got injured in college. I think his back, so that's why he couldn't continue, and he was injured the first season. But yeah, I think in terms of how far this team can go in the future, and in terms of how realistic winning is right now for them, I think it relies heavily on Michael Porter Jr.'s progression on this team. Next, I want to talk about just like a second or third, like a second star or like legitimate player next to Jokic. I mean, I guess we can say that Jamal Murray and Murray as well is kind of legitimate. He is a good player. He's like a borderline all-star, but behind next to Jokic, who is just an all-star. But my question is, who could be like that legitimate like third scorer or even the second scorer for this team? Because I certainly have seen times, even against, I'm talking about Jokic here, where the team is just really inconsistent and only one guy performed tonight, whether that's Millsap doing something or even just, Murray did it, or, usually it's, Jokic has a good game and then maybe just a little lack of performance from the rest of the team. Just thinking who could be the next guy and who could be like the solid 2 or 3 players who can be a really reliant on offensively is really important in order for this team to stay consistent and be a real big threat. Because when you look at the other Western Conference teams, the ones that are going to pose threats to them, the Rockets, that either Harden or Westbrook is putting on a big performance. The Lakers, LeBron and AD are instantly, they're very powerful players and what they do. They're easily going to have great games. And, easily, as well, the Clippers, they have 2 superstars on this team as well who are great two-way players. So when you look at the Nuggets, you have to think about who's going to be that second, who's going to be the 2 or 3 solid players who are consistent. Because I know Jokic at the beginning of the season for like the last 2 years has been really like, he starts off really poor. He does progress really well, but he starts off really, he does a little bit like subpar. Or it can also be just more bench presence, who on the bench could step up in nights. If they can get consistent people to step up on the bench, it obviously just going to help them even more. Next, I want to talk about free agency view. I do this with every single team, and for this team, I'm looking at the expiring contracts. We have Paul Millsap, Mason Plumlee, Torrey Craig, Noah Vonleh, and Troy Daniels. In terms of what's really meaningful for them to re-sign, I think Plumlee for sure and Torrey Craig. If Paul Millsap really kind of tries to bargain and really try to go for a higher contract, wouldn't hurt to just let him go. But I really think Millsap can help this team if he's working with them for a reasonable price. He definitely got overpaid this season, no doubt about that. If he got that as a previous contract or maybe with the Nuggets, he definitely opted into that player contract because it was a lot of money. He was not worth it. But in terms of this team, I only see that because of Jamal Murray's max contract he's going to get next season, he's jumping from $4.5 million to $29 million. So he's basically just making up Paul Millsap's contract. I also see that Jeremy Grant has a player option, which I don't know if he'll opt because he is a really valuable player, but I think he'll probably opt into it, especially since of the just the financial security for at least this season. But for this team, I see that they could probably grab somebody from below the $5 million range if they really want to add somebody to this team who can help them. I think what's special about this team is they already have a really good, solid number of players. Their bench is really good. They have good bench players. Whether that is Will Barton coming off the bench, he usually starts, but if Porter Jr. is starting, then it's usually Barton off the bench. With Torrey Craig, who's been a very invaluable player, Monte Morris has been really nice for them. Mason Plumlee, another valuable bench player. They have a really solid bench, so that's definitely not going to underestimate their bench. But for just free agency, I just don't see them making too many moves. Just prioritizing re-signing some players, or because they already have a lot of they have Jokic. They have Harris, Plumlee, and Barton locked in on some pretty stealthy contracts. But Plumlee's being a free agent this year. Just acknowledging that. And lastly, if the season continues, this is the hypothetical segment I do for every single team, and for them, I can see them being a legitimate, team who puts up a good fight in the second round, whether that is against either the Lakers or the Clippers if the season ended today, because they would have to play one of those teams. Right now, it would be the Clippers. I'm assuming the Clippers would win their round, and I think that would be tough for them. Right now, they would play the Rockets in the first round, which I think they can beat because of their small ball the Rockets play, and I think they would have to switch up and try to bring a big in, but they don't really have a lot of big man presence on their team anymore with the trade of shipping out Capella. So I see them being a really, competitive in the second round against the, whoever that is, because I do think they're a legitimate team and they can put up a good fight with their assets, and especially since they have the addition of Michael Porter Jr. this year. The only knock I have on them, and if they don't go that far, is just their lack of playoff experience. Last year it was their first season. But if I'm going off last season, they had a really impressive playoff performance without Michael Porter, and they went to Game 7. They almost went to the Western Conference Finals last year, which is really impressive because their team is, fairly young, except Paul Millsap is about, 10 years older than, the average of most of the team, except for Plumlee. So, yeah, when I think about the Denver Nuggets, ultimately, just thinking about moving forward, Michael Porter Jr., what he's going to mean to this team is really important. Re-signing players down the line, and especially just finding those guys who are going to be consistent for this team, and having those guys who you can count on night in and night out at least to be really important pieces to your team. And with that being said, that will be the end of my NBA Team Futures review for the Denver Nuggets. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, and drop a comment down in the comments section about any suggestions for some future videos or even a future series idea. Anything is greatly appreciated. And lastly, it wouldn't hurt if you could subscribe. It would help the channel. So thank you so much and have a great day.